Chapter 8. Children in Need. Who was it? I asked through clenched teeth. I was trying not to vent the full force of my exasperation. The entire youth club shrugged simultaneously. Who flushed the friggin' Connect 4 tokens down the bog? Several sniggers, but no reply. If no one's man enough to own up, I said, eyeing Den, then you'll all be barred, every single one of yous. Heads down, multiple cigarette drags, silence. I was making a threat I knew I would not carry out, like a Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. I explained that now we'd need to buy a new set and get a plumber to unblock the drain. Expense we could do without after having had to buy a new supersur to replace the one Mick had nicked. Why would anyone want to ruin their own youth club anyway, I asked. "'Cause it's boring as fuck," said Jerry. "Pure shite," contributed Tonto. Their opinions weren't news to me, but they were still soul-destroying. It's your youth club, so it is, so what do you want to do? The suggestions included more girls at the club, more trips, more scuffles, after which a minor scuffle developed. "Doesn't your man Terry Wogan give yous money sometimes?" asked Tonto. "Yes, we got a grant last year," I said. "So why don't we raise money for children in need?" asked Jeff. "Sure, we're not children in need," said Soup. "Aye," said Jeff, "but we should do it to help all them poor wee kids with nothing." This comment was followed by only 2 wise-a-bops and 1 catch-yourself-on, indicating that the suggestion might have some potential. "Hire your horses, lads," I said. "I think that's a great idea. So how would you raise money for children in need? A sponsored walk?" "Sponsored walk my arse," said Jerry. "You're not at Belfast Royal Academy now, so you're not. All you prods ever want to do is walk or fucking march." "A sponsored piss-up," suggested Billy. "Sponsored scuffles," cheered the lads. Once the latest scuffle calmed down, Soup came up with a more practical suggestion. "What about a 5-a-side football tournament?" said Soup. "What about a sponsored pool competition?" asked Jeff. This seemed like a pretty good idea to me. "Aye, we could do it in here," said Jerry, as he hackled into his ashtray. The young people were so brutalised by the Troubles that the last time they'd been this excited was when a British soldier was shot. I thought the 5-a-side football team was the better idea, but my youth work training had taught me to take the lead from the young people. Of course, this particular youth work methodology didn't work so well when all the young people wanted to do was to break a few orange bastards' windows in Tigers Bay. Within a few minutes, and after a sustained period of intriguing whispering, nodding and winking among several youth club members, everyone agreed on a 24-hour pool tournament, with all the players being sponsored by the hour. "When will we do it, tomorrow?" asked Den. "No, lads, we need time to plan it properly and get permission and everything," I explained, trying not to dampen this newfound enthusiasm. One of the biggest problems of long-term unemployment and the severe lack of job opportunities for our young people was the feeling of hopelessness that resulted in apathy. At least bombs and shootings and riots were exciting. Enthusiasm was rare because the young people found it hard to dream of a better life, and attempts to break out of the pattern of unemployment and poverty had proved fruitless. For example, I had recently arranged a job interview for Soup in a hardware shop in the city centre. He would have been a good employee, but he clammed up at the interview, and the shopkeeper didn't want to take a risk with a young lad from the New Lodge. Soup's conclusion was that he would never get a job. The enthusiasm for the fundraiser remained, and the stage was set. The first Salt Shaker Senior Youth Club sponsored 24-hour pool tournament would take place in November on the night of the BBC Children in Need telethon. Everyone got busy making the necessary arrangements. I had to seek permission from John Evans and give the Reverend Taylor assurances we would have adequate volunteers to supervise the 24 hours, and that the young people wouldn't be allowed to wreck the place, bring in alcohol or run off with the sponsorship money. I was more than 50% certain I could avert all of these possibilities. Next, we had to design and print the sponsorship forms and give them out to the youth club members, and then arrange a rota for both youth workers and pool players to cover half-hour sessions for a period of 24 hours. I was delighted when some of the young people got busy asking family and neighbours for sponsorship. But as well as being a fundraiser, I wanted this to be a positive experience for the youth club members that proved they could do something good for the community. I hated it when older people in the local community dismissed the young people as wee hoods, troublemakers and scum. I was well aware of just how much trouble they could make, but most of the young people I got to know just wanted somewhere to go, something to do, and some hope for the future. However, the sponsored pool tournament turned out to be a stressful 24 hours. 8 consecutive Tuesday nights of crack and chaos in one unending day. The choice of music to play alone required all of my conflict resolution skills. "If your man plays that fucking Erasure tape one more time, I'm gonna top myself," complained Dan. Then, realising what he'd just said, he whispered, "Sorry, Tone, I forgot about your da. No offence, mate." I appreciated Dan's sensitivity. This was one of the everyday phrases that pierced my heart every time I heard it now. The daytime hours at the start of the marathon were good-natured and relaxed, but as darkness descended, the pool tournament became increasingly fractious. I had to break up several fights involving the cues and balls, and I had to go outside and count to 10 after I discovered a series of cigarette burns on the newly refurbished pool table. I was excited when Joan informed me proudly that the BBC had telephoned the office to ask if their mobile broadcasting unit from BBC Radio Ulster could come and do a live broadcast from our pool tournament. Some of the lads needed convincing because the BBC was part of the British war machine, and they said the news was always against them. The BBC wanted to interview me and several of the youth club members live. So I agreed to speak about the project, and several of the lads promised to give a fuck-free interview. Mike Edgar and the team from Radio Ulster arrived just before midnight. At first, when they entered the smoky back room of the drop-in centre, they looked a little nervous and scanned the room for the nearest emergency exit route. They were like a media crew arriving in a war zone. But after a bit of slagging, they realised our young people were only going to attack them verbally and attempt to kill them with banter. "You're an even uglier bastard in real life than on TV," said Soup to Mike Edgar. "Come on, Soup, you're no oil painting yourself," I said. "Least I'm not a specky bastard." The BBC team laughed and I smarted. I pushed my glasses up my nose and smiled knowingly at the broadcasters. Thankfully, they were very down to earth, and so they relaxed and prepared us for our interviews. I had brought my portable TV downstairs so that we could watch television and follow the telethon throughout the day. Several times that evening, our efforts were acknowledged in a scroll along the bottom of the screen, highlighting all the local fundraising in Northern Ireland. "We're fucking famous," shouted Billy. "Everyone knows what we're doing the night for that big yellow bear." "Aye, we're setting ducks," warned Dan, with the security implications of our widely advertised location in mind. In those days, when a BBC channel closed for the night, the national anthem always played before the screen went to the test card of the girl playing noughts and crosses with her toy clown. And so it came to pass that just after midnight, as Mike Edgar announced that he was live from the Saltshaker Youth Club at the top of the New Lodge Road, the sound of "God Save the Queen" echoed around the back room of the drop-in centre. None of the young people seemed to notice because they were so excited about being on the radio. But my mind was racing. If the main provo in North Belfast was listening and thought we played "God Save the Queen" at every youth club to indoctrinate the young people, the consequences would be terrifying. As soon as I had stuttered my way through my interview, I casually shuffled over towards the television, still smiling and nodding as Dan told the audience that the Saltshaker was class because there's nothing to do round here and we get harassed by the Brits and all. And I discreetly switched the sound off. I thought up a story in case the angry Republican arrived. I could argue that he must have been mistaken in hearing "God Save the Queen," or maybe tell him that Mike Edgar had apologised for a technical fault with the Divis transmitter. I knew the provost liked to blow up the device transmitter, so I hoped this lie would redirect him to a more familiar target. Thankfully, no one seemed to have heard the broadcast, but now I was feeling very stressed and exhausted. I was scheduled to take a nap between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m, with 2 other volunteers taking over the supervision. But I couldn't sleep properly because I kept wondering what was going on downstairs. I had recurrent dreams that I was waking to the sound of the fire brigade arriving to douse the flames of the centre, until the drilling of the buzzer alerted me to the fact that I was needed back at the pool table. When I got back down, there was a distinct smell of marijuana and solvents. The fire exit door was open. I suspected this was either to clear illegal odours, to enable the theft of some of the youth club equipment, or to provide a secret entrance to store something illegal for a few hours. Everyone was trying so hard to look nonchalant that I knew they had been up to something. I never found out exactly what went on that night. I hope it was drugs rather than weapons. I could live with my naivety providing a venue for illicit drugs, but not with being somehow party to a movement of guns or explosives that would be used to kill people. I knew that some of our young people would not contemplate doing anything like this unless they were forced to, and most of the lads were more interested in an all-night party than a charity fundraiser. But I had also heard enough conversations to realise that some of the young men were actively involved in the armed struggle. To lift the mood, I decided to change the music on my ghetto blaster, which I had brought downstairs from the bedsit for the day, together with all of my best albums including Tears for Fears, Erasure, Paul Young and the Eurythmics. By 6 a.m, all that remained was my tape of ABBA's Greatest Hits Volume 2. As far as my music collection went, the pool tournament winners really had taken it all. I just about made it to 9 a.m. and finally collapsed into bed as soon as the morning prayer meeting had finished in my office/bedroom. Once we had all caught up on our sleep and the back room was cleaned and thoroughly aired for another 24 hours, the event was deemed a great success by everyone. The young people had successfully completed a project with their own idea, and on top of this, we had been featured as a success story on the radio. This was a new experience for our young people, and they were on a high for the next few days. After several weeks of chasing sponsorship money, we were able to send a couple of £100 to children in need. In the meantime, I followed up on another idea of a football team and secured a small grant for a football kit. I arranged for our team to play against other youth clubs in North Belfast on Saturday mornings. At first I thought the cross-community matches our team played were a good idea because the players could make friends and break down barriers. However, it soon became clear that the football pitch was just another arena for rivalry, and broken legs were the most likely outcome. The only way forward was for the young people from the different communities to play together on the same team. But no one wanted to do that. An alternative regular soccer opportunity came via one of the 174 Trust's prayer supporters who worked at the Young Offenders Centre in Macaulay. Every week we took a minibus to the Borstal and our young people played five-a-side football against their peers who were in prison. Our players showed no prejudice or fear of the lads in prison, and everyone got along just fine. A phrase I often heard was, "If you can't do the time, don't do the crime." The youth club members treated their opponents with a mixture of sympathy for getting caught and respect for surviving imprisonment. An independent observer would probably have been surprised at the good humour and sportsmanship displayed by the residents of inner-city Belfast and the incarcerated youth. I wasn't a great football coach, unfortunately, but I was very happy to take on the important job of driving the minibus and arranging for the kits to be washed every week. I wasn't the only one making progress with marginalised youth. While I had been working with the young people in the New Lodge for more than a year now, Lesley had just been successful in her application for a job with the Save the Children Fund in the Upper Shankill. She was appointed as a youth worker at St Columbus, a Church of Ireland church at the top of the Ballygomartin Road, just across the road from my old primary school. I had been unaware that Save the Children was funding work outside of Africa, in fact in the same area where I had grown up. Apparently, I had been one of the children needing saved. Lesley would be running youth clubs for young people from the same estates where I had taught Sunday school and where I had worked as a van boy for the Ormeau bread man for years. It was clear there were children in need who needed saved just about everywhere. The minister of St. Columba's was the Reverend Tim Kinahan, who was from an aristocratic family in Temple Patrick. He had recently returned from a mission in Africa and was clearly up for a challenge because the top of the Shankill must have seemed almost as far from his ancestral seat in Temple Patrick as Africa. He got on well with Lesley, even though he disapproved of her zeal for evangelism as much as she disapproved of his reverence for liturgy. They found common ground in wanting to provide youth development activities for the children and young people of the Upper Shankill. With 2 salaries now in place, Lesley and I applied for a mortgage and signed up for the co-ownership scheme. On the day we collected the keys of our new house in Brucevale Park from the estate agent on the Antrim Road, we walked hand in hand around the corner, through the control zone and the yellow steel barrier blocking the road, up the street and onward to our first front step and our first front door. I scanned the bricks from the ground to the roof and felt proud and elated that I now owned complete walls and a roof, in fact a whole building, or at least 50% of it. We opened the new mahogany front door of our brand new luxury townhouse, entered the empty house and kissed in our new living room. This was our place now. Later that week, we asked Mo and Tonto if they would paint all of the interior walls for a small fee, which they appreciated, although they went against my advice and did not declare these earnings to the dole office. In spite of their unpredictable temperaments, the lads did a brilliant job, and I told them they could start their own painter and decorator business and do really well. Lesley's parents were extremely generous and provided us with all the furniture we needed to get started. Pine bedroom furniture, a pine table and chairs, a lovely floral sofa with matching curtains. Once all the decorating with magnolia emulsion was complete, and all of the furniture delivered and assembled, it became clear that Lesley's words were true. She had made the little house lovely. The rooms were bright, in spite of the peace wall towering behind us, and the house felt bigger on the inside than the outside, a perfect TARDIS in which we could begin married life. The house smelt of fresh paint, new carpet, fresh pine and glue, presumably from the new furniture and not as a result of unapproved antics by Mo and Tonto. We didn't believe in living together before we were married, so I stayed in the bedsit while Lesley moved in with her friend Jennifer from Balaki, renting the spare room. I kept a close eye on the peace line so that I could be on hand in an emergency and dash around the corner should the Protestants from the other side or any barred youth club members on this side try to attack the house containing 2 lone Presbyterian women. Lesley was a little nervous at first, but after a few weeks with no incidents, she settled into our beautiful house. All of the pieces of the jigsaw were falling into place. We believed it was all part of God's plan for us, and that He would protect us in our future home and in our work alongside the loyalist and Republican young people that few other people could be bothered with. Who knows, I said to Lesley, maybe we could bring our 2 youth clubs together to meet each other and make friends with the other side and have discussions with each other like they do up at Coromila. I was certain that this approach had more potential than cross-community football. That's a brilliant idea, said Lesley.